That's right. Good afternoon, everybody. How you doing? It is Wednesday afternoon. It is Hump Day. It is also Constitution Day. And our guest, the prosecutor, Solicitor David Stumbo, is running a few minutes behind. So, a real professional such as I have no problem filling the time. And I actually am glad to have this minute here because coming up tonight at Lander University will be a really great show that I hope you're going to make it to. That is this evening at 6 o'clock in the Abney Cultural Auditorium. The event is free and open to the public, and it is two men, Stephen Edinbow, portraying Thomas Jefferson, and Peyton Dixon, portraying John Adams, will debate the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution live at Lander. This is a really big event, and I hope you're going to take advantage of coming out to see that. So, I do believe my guest has just arrived, so I am going to go let him in. I'll be right back. So, here's a little musical interlude as we get set up for the show. Be right back. Oh, that's right. We are right back here, and I have captured him. The solicitor from the 8th District right here, David Stumbo, after a big announcement last night. So it is sure good to have him here in studio. This is a big move, and I've actually known David since the first time he ran for office over at Sharp Facets. We had our first interview.
That's right. It's been a long time ago. I mean, that's 13 to 2012. That was 13 years ago, Ann. That's time flies when you're having fun, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, it sure is good to have you here. I would expect you've had a lot of outpouring of congratulations and whatnot.
We have. It's been very encouraging to see all the shares on social media and the well wishes, and just people not only from here in Greenwood, which is home, but from all over the state, places I've worked in past years. Had just a lot of just great reconnections today, messages from people that I haven't talked to in several years that just saw the news and wanted to offer their congratulations. So it's been
and
really
I hope
cool.
their support.
Yes, we've had a lot of support today.
A lot of support.
It's good. Of course, you always have the commenters on Facebook. I told several of my family members, especially my mom and my kids and Vanessa, don't read the comments on Facebook, because even though 95% of them are positive,
right,
you get the ones that are pretty toxic and bombastic, and they can be discouraging if you fixate on those. So yes, right. But not we 95 probably +% has been very, very positive response. So that's good.
Shake it off.
That's right.
Shake it off. Well, I today is Constitution Day. Today is
Correct.
Constitution Day. What does that mean to you?
It means everything for our country. I mean, we're an experiment in liberty here in the United States, and we were the first country to say we're going to be ruled by law and under God. One nation under God, but ultimately that we don't have a government of men. We have a government of laws that's overseen by.
Now that's an interesting point of view.
Yes. So and ultimately the law is the king. There was a book written by a Scottish philosopher named Samuel Rutherford called Lex Rex, and that's Latin for the law is the king. And that was a revolutionary concept at the time, but all of our founders were very familiar with Rutherford's book Lex Rex, and it's the fact that we have the Constitution that governs us ultimately, and we don't have kings in our country that can just at their very word, have people imprisoned or killed or have property taken away. That we have constitutional rights that protect life, liberty, and our property and the pursuit of happiness. That those were concepts that in the 18th century were not generally practiced around the world. Most places had a dictator or a king or a oligarchy or a rule of people that had the most power. And in our country, we decided that we were going to start a nation where the law was the most powerful thing, and that everyone, every man, even from the president on down, was subject to the law. So Constitution Day is a celebration of that, and what makes our country free, what makes our country great, prosperous, all comes back to that concept that the law is the king in our country.
Saying that, I would be interested. Would you like to comment on the Charlie Kirk assassination and the strife that our country is in, David? And as a person that is running for AG for the state of South Carolina, what do you think? And can our country come together and be healed? That's really three questions.
Right. Well, first of all, before I launch into my takes on it, just heartbroken for the Kirk family. I mean, that's really the heart of this is Erica Kirk and their two precious children that are going to have to go forward without dad and husband in their home, and that is devastating in and of itself. For any father of young children to be lost. So my prayers and prayers of my family are with, hopefully daily, weekly, out into the future are going to be for that family. And just so heartbroken for them. But on the I guess the political commentary side of it tells you how far we've gone down the road to this toxic language in our political discourse that has led to actual physical violence. And it's been enabled, I believe, by the left. You don't see political leaders, commentators on the left worried about the next person that's going to come take a shot at them. But legitimately on the right now, we have that fear. And Charlie Kirk was a symbol of the conservative movement, especially the youth conservative movement.
Absolutely.
In fact, Dan, I just on a personal level, my son Gabe, and I told this story last night to several people. Gabe introduced me to Charlie Kirk probably when he was in middle school. He's almost 24 now, so I'm thinking 9-10 years ago, whenever Charlie started Turning Point USA and doing a lot of these recorded social media posts of him engaging with college students. My son was the first one to show me one of those. I didn't know who Charlie Kirk was until Gabe, and he was very inspired by Charlie Kirk. And my son Gabe has been a conservative, I think, since then, and he's always was fired up when he'd see Charlie speaking the truth to people that didn't want to hear it. But he always did it in a way to where he was tough with people in his.
He's firm in his beliefs.
Very firm, but by the same token, he gave people the respect of debate to give them their time to talk too, and then
what our country was founded on.
That's exactly right. That's the discourse that we need to get back to without hating the person that's on the other side of it. And I think it's been far too accepted on the left, and sometimes by our brethren on the right, conservatives, sometimes can get to that point where they start to hate the other side, and that's not. You can win a debate and win in the marketplace of ideas without hating people, and that obviously leading to the violence that led to Charlie's death. It's one thing to have President Trump, when the attempted assassination on him, that was shocking, but I guess we've seen presidents and presidential candidates shot at before for all kinds of reasons. This was a little bit different. It was almost even more shocking because it's a regular citizen that just happened to have a voice on social media and a platform, and he was shot at specifically, and we know this from the shooter's writings at this point that have been exposed in the last few days, exactly why he shot at Charlie Kirk, because he hated him and he hated his message, and he believed he needed to die because of his viewpoints. And we have to, in this country, and I call on the left especially, to tone down that rhetoric, that is leading to this kind of thing, and let's re-engage again in true political discourse. And I have friends that are on the even in town here that are Democrat leaning, and some that are lifelong Democrats that I have great conversations with. We disagree on issues.
But don't you think sometimes you learn something?
I do.
If you let somebody speak and then they listen to you, you both walk away richer. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Exactly. And you can both agree to disagree, but you can learn from each other. I think that's a great point. So, all in all, we have to be firm. This is the one thing, of course, I heard from a lot of people on the left that now we're almost celebrating his death. A lot of these college professors, that thankfully there's action being taken against them now, and I think that's a good thing.
3 professors at Clemson have been fired.
Yes, and that I'm glad that Clemson eventually stood up and took action. I know it took a little while, and calls from some prominent people in South Carolina and candidates for governor, I know were calling for that. The Attorney General weighed in on the situation, because I think that there was some thought there that the school could be prosecuted or sued for wrongful termination, and that's just
tenured professors.
Right,
for those tenured.
That's correct, but that's just not accurate. And so I believe that the bottom line is the First Amendment protects our right to have our viewpoints, but there's consequences when you celebrate something as classless as celebrating the death of a regular citizen like Charlie Kirk. And I think employers should have the freedom, no matter if they're government employers, school employers, or private business people, should have the ability to terminate people for showing that level of classlessness, so to speak. So I'm glad Clemson took action. I think other schools are doing the same.
Absolutely.
Isn't it something, though, that most of these people that we're seeing are college professors?
Yes.
And that's a shame to see where our institutions of higher learning, many of them have gotten to, that's the way these folks think.
One of the things that I am glad is that this young man is still alive, so that maybe we can find out from whence a lot of this is coming eventually. Right. Because we need to find out exactly how this kid that was a normal kid became so radicalized, right?
Exactly. And I'm sure if Utah chooses to seek the death penalty, which
they have, yes.
That there are going to be a bunch of evaluations, and that's what death penalty litigation has turned into, a lot of these psychological evaluations.
Well, you could speak to that one on
yes,
Bixby. That
exactly.
one just came through,
exactly,
right?
And we'll talk about that in a minute. But in terms of the Charlie Kirk case, this guy that killed him there's going to be evaluations. Eventually, a lot of that will be public will be able to see that, and I think we'll be able to see exactly what trail led him to that radicalization. And I think a lot of it probably was going off to college, and I'd be interested to know which voices he was listening to. Were they social media voices? Were they professors? Were they others? Were they peers?
Sure.
That'll tell us a lot about where we've gotten to, and maybe how we can start pushing back against it.
Well, that's my point. We need to figure it out. So many times these people take their own lives, and we're left just a paper trail, and hopefully we've gotten the answers.
Right.
But anyways, I want to talk about you today, because you are the subject of what we're talking about here today. And one of the comments that always interests me, you say you've been a lifelong Republican, which is, most young people start out a little more liberal and then become more conservative. So what has made you a lifelong Republican?
Well, I think I just grew up in a family where it's second nature, I guess. And of course, that is no guarantee. I'm one of 10 kids, and so not all 10 of us are Republicans. We grew up in a very conservative Republican family. I think just the idea that I think the Lord has a lot to do with this. I'm bringing the spiritual component in some, that I think when God teaches you stuff early on, you start to, if you really want to pursue the truth. And of course, I'm like anybody else who's been on a spiritual journey that's not always trending towards going towards God. Sometimes I've strayed, and I think us as sinful human beings do that. But from an early age, I think I understood that God's word was the truth, and I based my life on my faith in God. And I think that I haven't strayed, at least from that belief. Have the actions, like anybody else, always been perfect? No. And I think all of us can say that. But at the end of the day, I've always acknowledged that God's word is true, and that it has something to say to me as an individual and to us as collectively as a society. And that was ingrained into me by my parents, and I have not at least strayed from that belief. And so I think my political beliefs sprout from my faith in Christ. And so my Christian faith has educated my political beliefs. And it's probably why I've always been a Republican. I believe the Republican platform is more consistent with what I believe to be true, whether that's on issues of life.
Usually young people grow up a little more liberal, and as they get out there in the working world, they decide, well, maybe I'd like to keep a little more of my money.
That's right. And there again, that's I've had debates even within my own home with my own kids that sometimes don't agree 100% with Dad. So, and I think that's a healthy thing for us to be able to discuss those things. I don't want my kids to be robots that just spew what they've been heard. I want them to be able to critically think and work through their beliefs and their faith on their own. And so anyway, that's I know a long answer to that, but I have been a lifelong follower of Christ. And so does that always mean that if you're not a Republican, that's not equal? I'm not saying that.
Are there Democrats that are?
I have Democrat friends that are Christians.
Okay, let's say that now.
100%.
Yeah, right.
So, but by the same token, I think on the issue of life, that's something that's always been I've been passionate about that. So, the Republican platform endorses the pro-life position. The Democrat platform endorses a pro-abortion position. And so that issue has always been one that's been near and dear to my heart, even since childhood. I remember going to pro-life rallies with my mother, and that really meant a lot just to think about the issue of life. And I think that's why in presidential races, even before I could vote, I remember, loving Ronald Reagan and a lot of these conservative leaders we had on the Republican side. So when I say lifelong Republican, it does go back to even as a kid when I loved President Reagan. I remember.
And you're only 49.
That's right. So in the 80s, when President Reagan was the president, I was an elementary school student. I remember, in fact, the Just Say No. And push in schools from the First Lady, First Lady Nancy Reagan pushed that, and
And your brain on drugs with the scrambled egg.
Right, the scrambled egg. Oh yeah. That's good
what
stuff.
What happened to those days, David?
I don't know. Maybe we need to bring those back because people don't realize maybe now that it turns your brain into mush when you abuse meth and fentanyl and all these other dangerous drugs. So, yes, but I truly am, and I can say with authenticity that I'm a lifelong Republican, and I've been a lifelong conservative.
Unlike some others that waffle in their positions.
That's correct.
Yes, absolutely. So as we talk about this, I think that you, of course, have worked in the AG's office. You worked for Alan there for a while, right? How did you get started in what made you decide to become a lawyer?
It had a lot to do with, I think it probably was sparked initially by my mother, Debbie Stumbo. A lot of people listening to this show today probably know my mom, Debbie, and she's always been, she likes to debate issues, and I always, as a kid, was pretty good at arguing with her, so I guess she said, I think you need to go to law school one day. And that got me thinking. She touched
your head and went, you need to be a lawyer.
Right. So I think she was probably right. I was probably sometimes a little disrespectful in my arguments, but at the same time, she planted that seed. When I was in undergrad, when I went to college in Georgia, I was over in Toccoa, Georgia. I played sports growing up, so that was a big focus of mine in high school and college. I played basketball and baseball on the college level, and I played all the sports in high school here in Greenwood. But that was my focus at the time. So I thought when I was in college, hey, I might teach, be a high school teacher, teach history and government, because I like those subjects, and be a baseball and basketball coach on the high school level. Or I might go to law school. Those were kind of my two career paths. And not until after I graduated from undergrad, I came back here to Greenwood. My brother and I started a sign business, my older brother Jonathan, and that business was sold a little bit later after I went to law school. But we did that for 3 years. I got married to my still wife Vanessa today, 26 years ago, and went to law school about a year and a half after we got married. And so that was I just decided at that point, okay, made a firm decision. I'm not going to go the teaching and coaching route, although I have been able to coach some part-time in my adult life with my kids, which I've really enjoyed. But decided, okay, this is the path. We're going to take the LSAT, apply to law school, and end up getting into Carolina Law School. We moved to Columbia in 2001. And Gabriel, who's my son that I was just talking about a second ago, he's almost 24 now. He was born my first year of law school in Columbia. And so ended up going to law school, got a job, and the summer job after my first year of law school was at the Attorney General's office. So I ran into Charlie Condon, who was at the time our state Attorney General, and he was running for governor. And I didn't know Charlie. I was the first lawyer in my family. I really didn't have a lot of connections in the legal field. But Vanessa and I went to a political function because we were supporting a candidate for Attorney General named John Osment at the time. And John has since then been over the Department of Corrections at the prison. Long story short, I run into Charlie Condon at this event and tell him, look, Mr. Condon, I'd really like to be a prosecutor. And I just I'm finishing up my first year of law school, and I'd love to work in your office this summer. And he wrote down my name and number, and the next thing I thought, I'll probably never hear from them.
Right.
And the next week, John McIntosh, who was the chief deputy AG at the time under Condon, and then later under Henry McMaster, he calls me and brings me in for an interview. They hire me for the summer as a summer law clerk, and I worked there.
And you never left.
From that time on in law school, I would go to my classes after summertime. We started class back. I'd go to my classes at the law school and walk down the street to the Attorney General's office and work back and forth. And so I worked a lot of hours at the AG's office when I was in law school. And that eventually turned into, after I passed the bar and graduated in 2004, that turned into a full-time position as a prosecutor. And my first job there was prosecuting sexually violent predators and the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, which was a great first job. It was a sobering job getting
that
into
was
that.
Earlier on in the internet and everything, though. Wasn't it? Yeah,
it was. And I look back on that now, and I see, sometimes God's hand in allowing me to be in positions that allowed me to prosecute high-profile cases. So I was kind of able to make a name for myself a little bit in the criminal justice world, because a lot of those cases, by that time, Governor McMaster was the Attorney General, and there was a lot of those cases that made headlines. And so I was able to actually take to trial the first 3 cases that we tried that were these undercover cases where SLED agents and local deputies would pose as 12-year-old girls in these chat rooms.
Right.
And the predators would come out of, to meet them somewhere with, their wine coolers and all, So these things made a lot of headlines, and we were able to get convictions on all 3 of those early cases, and these guys got long sentences, and I was able to lead those prosecutions as a very young prosecutor. And I probably didn't know what the heck I was doing at the time.
Did that warp your brain, though, some, to be involved in those cases?
I wouldn't say it warped my brain, but it was very hard emotionally. I tell you, because at the time I had young kids. By that time Gabe had been born, and Hallie, my oldest daughter, were young. And to have to work those internet crimes cases where not only were we doing those cases, but, working with child sexual abuse material, or child pornography is what it's called times 2. But there's nothing more I'd say psychologically damaging than having to watch videos of kids that are being molested. It's awful. I don't wish that on anyone that doesn't have to do that as part of their jobs. And in fact, our officers that work in those jobs, we actually encourage them to take sabbaticals and have regular kind of, decompression stuff, because it's traumatic to have to watch that stuff. And so Vanessa would even tell you that 3-year period when I was working that job was 3 of the hardest years in our family. And it's because sometimes I'd come home, man, and just to be transparent, I'd have to shut myself down emotionally.
I believe it.
To deal with those cases, and then that made it more difficult for me to be a dad and a husband and the things I needed to do. So that was a tough time, but it was a rewarding time professionally, but it was very tough in our family life. So the timing was right. The solicitor in Lexington, Donnie Myers, who is still one of my closest friends and mentors today, I got a job offer from him to come to Lexington, and they had actually seen me prosecute one of these internet crimes cases in Lexington.
Right.
So it was one of the cases was venued in Lexington County, and I tried that case. And shortly after that, they called me out there for an interview. One of the deputy solicitors, Rick Hubbard, who's now the elected solicitor, he introduced me last night at this announcement. Rick called me out for an interview. They ended up hiring me. It was one of the best decisions I ever made to go work for the solicitor there. Worked that job for close to 4 years and got to do everything. And so it was very nuanced and specific at the AG's office on these sexual predator cases. At the solicitor's office, I got to prosecute murders, armed robberies, drug traffickers, felony DUI death cases. I had a great opportunity there to kind of do a little bit of everything and learn how to just go in and strike a jury and try a case. And there were weeks where I was participating in 2 trials in 1 week, and those were busy times. You try one, get a conviction, and then you strike another jury on a short trial, maybe at the end of the week, like a short drug case or something. So I was busy in that job, but it was a lot less, I guess, stressful and mentally and emotionally taxing than the other job. And I got just to learn how to be a courtroom prosecutor from some of the best around. Donnie at that time had put more people on death row than any living prosecutor in America. And it's just Lexington County had really good conservative juries, so that helped. But it also helped me, in that time, have a lot of success, a lot of law and order juries. So we had a whole lot more guilties than not guilties. So I think that all prepared me, Ann, as a young guy, to move home to Greenwood and run for solicitor in 2012. And so,
what was your decision to run? Why did you decide to move home? I mean, you were living in Lexington. You had
we had a great situation. In fact, at that point, I'd left the solicitor's office because Alan had been elected AG, and so Alan brought me back to the AG's office in end of 2010 when he was elected. And I was helping run the state grand jury. I was a supervisor there. I thought I'd be there for many years, and I think God had other plans. I mean, that's the bottom line. It wasn't something. It came out of nowhere. It wasn't something that I was just in the AG's office, doing my thing and thinking, wow, I need to just leave this great job, go back home and run for solicitor. One
might ask you that about right now.
Right.
You've got this great job right here in Greenwood.
Right. I know. And sometimes I ask myself that question. I'm certainly not running from this job because I think it's the greatest in the world. And I'll talk a little bit in a second about that. But one of the reasons I ran for solicitor is out of nowhere, I get calls from two of the sheriffs in this circuit and the police chief of the largest municipality in the circuit, Greenwood. And none of the three of those guys they're all retired now. They're all still living and are great guys. But they invited me up here for a meeting and asked me if I would consider running for solicitor. And
out of the blue.
Now I had handled a case in Greenwood about a month before. It was a conflict case. The guy's name was Scott Masterson. He was a deputy with the Greenwood Sheriff's Department.
Yep.
Masterson, it was just a kleptomaniac. It was crazy. He was stealing heavy equipment and lawnmowers and thousands of dollars worth of this heavy equipment from a lot of people around Greenwood, and did it. He even took the police report for a couple of the thefts. It was unbelievable. So Masterson was caught eventually in that. He was charged with grand larceny and some pretty, all property offenses. But the case was conflict to the Attorney General's office. The case was kind of sitting for a while there while I was at the solicitor's office. When I got to the AG's office, they said, hey, you're from Greenwood. You may be able to handle this. I guess it just had not received a lot of good attention there. So I said, yeah, sure. Well, I'll pick up the ball and run with it. And so I remember meeting some of the guys at the sheriff's department at the time. John Murray was one. There was a lot of other guys, Dale Kittles, William Kinney, who's, God rest his soul, he's passed away. A lot of the kind of brass at the Greenwood Sheriff's Office at the time. I got to know them pretty well, and they were really wanting to see Masterson get some consequences because they felt like it was a really stain on the badge what he had done. And it was. It really affected the morale up here. And so I came up to Greenwood and we put that case up. It was a guilty plea in front of Judge Addy. And Judge Addy, we asked for jail time, and Judge Addy gave Masterson, I think, a 4-year jail sentence. And at the time, that was, I guess, the Sheriff's Department was very surprised to see a jail sentence in a property crimes case because they just said, we don't see that very often up here. And I think that they saw the way I handled that case, and I tried to work hard on it, was professional. And that maybe, I think, made an impact on them. At the time, my brother was also working at the Sheriff's Department, my younger brother, Tim, who's now IT guy, but at the time he worked in law enforcement for a few years. And so he actually, I think, called me first in a room with a lot of the guys in the Sheriff's Department and said, hey, we've talked to the sheriff. He wants to talk to you. And so I came up and had a meeting with these guys, and they pitched the idea. And at first I thought it was kind of crazy. I said, well, I don't know, guys. I got a pretty good job in Columbia. I don't know if the time is right for this. But anyway, went home. Vanessa and I talked about it. At first it was kind of like, yeah, that'd be a lot. But we prayed about it. We said, okay, well, let's pray about it. And we'll see which way God leads us, and the doors start opening. And next thing I know, I had an offer, knowing that I had to leave the Attorney General's office to move home. I had an offer for a place for my family to live, for us to rent over on Lake Greenwood. It was just a small house, but it was a great little place where the retired couple that reached out to us. That door opened, a house for us to rent.
That was in Mountville, was it?
It was actually, at the time, we were in Waterloo. We were right on the Lawrence side of the lake. Vanessa grew up in Mountville, and we ended up living there. We still have a farm out there too, some farmland, but lived there with the Quarles and just a house that they rented out to our family. It was a great little landing spot for us. And then John McCravey reached out to me and offered me a job. And he had heard that I was thinking about running. There weren't many lawyers at the time in Greenwood that would have stuck their neck out to do that.
Right.
But John knew that for me to be able to move to Greenwood and run for solicitor, that I had to have, some income. I wasn't independently wealthy. So we moved there. He gave me a job. We moved about Christmas time before the election year. We moved to Greenwood, and I just, we don't need to rehash that whole year. It was kind of a blur, but, my predecessor, who I've a great, a good guy, Jerry is, Jerry Peace, and he and I have since talked a lot. At the time, I think he was very upset that I ran and ended up winning that race. Since then, I've talked to him, and he's actually, believe it or not, thanked me. He said, I didn't realize how stressed out I was at the time, and he landed on his feet. He is still doing some part-time federal judge work, doing Social Security cases. He and Dolores live in Greenville, so we were able to make peace about all that. I think the bottom line is law enforcement had gotten to a point where they were going to run somebody. I sensed a little bit that maybe if I didn't run and it was some other guy that just won because it was the anti-Jerry Peace vote, that it may not be somebody who would really care about this community. In fact, there was another guy in that race that wasn't from Greenwood, wasn't from the circuit, but lived in Newberry, that ran as a Democrat, and we won the general election too. But I just felt like that if the timing was such that it needed to be done, because if another guy won, they might be set up in this position, and I wouldn't be able to run for circuit solicitor. So all that to say, I believe the timing was right. It was God's timing. It's always right if it's on His timing, and that was 13 years ago, and we've really, I think, built the office over there into something that we're proud of.
And I know one of the things, and then I want to move on, I got some questions. I remember one of the things that you said when you were campaigning is you were going to try cases, and you were going to get these guys that were being held in jail or whatever to either plead it out or stand up and be tried.
Right.
But I think you've done a great job with that. But one of the questions is, as AG, because I know funding is a constant problem for any of the solicitor's office in our state. How can you, if you become AG, affect that? Because I know you've been affected by that in this office. That's
a great question. First and foremost, I will continue to advocate, as I've done as solicitor with some of my fellow solicitors, for increased funding on the state level. Some of the state money has actually been instrumental in us getting our office where we need to be financially. I mean, we still need to have some more funding, I think, on the county level. I'm still primarily funded in my office by the state, but thankfully when the state stepped up their funding a few years ago, it kind of filled some of the gaps that we had in our counties, in our county funding, which has been great. I think we're in a better place than we've ever been.
But don't
right
you
now
still have a lot of cases that need to be?
Do.
I mean, how do you get caught up?
We still have some of the highest caseload per prosecutor, and it's because we don't have as many prosecutors as a lot of the other solicitors because they have better county funding.
So you're saying part of ours is county funding?
It is. It's a lack of county funding here, and it's gotten a little marginally better. I will say that. I know, Ann, you and I have talked about this a few years ago, and I was griping a lot about our counties. Our counties have improved somewhat. We did get some increased funding from Greenwood County to attack the drug problem, and I'm telling you, we have seen a serious decrease in our fentanyl epidemic because we've been able to really turn our attention to it. Greenwood County was able to give us some money that was pass-through money, so it was money from the opioid settlement on the state side that came through the counties. But all that to say, they were able to allocate us some of that money, which has been very helpful. In Lawrence funds us at about twice of what they did when I got elected. It's still not as much as a lot of counties the size of Lawrence, but it's better than it was. So we've come up marginally, but I think I'm still going to continue to advocate.
How are we going to get to a point where, you want to fight crime? Can we keep people just sitting in jail forever till you get there? And the next question is going to be, do we have the facilities to be able to hold the people?
Right. I think in one of the big needs we have in Greenwood, I think, is the jail. And I know I've talked to Sheriff Kelly about this and Cody Bishop, who's his chief deputy.
I've been a big proponent
yes,
that we need a new
and so
jail.
I feel like a lot of the new capital sales tax money, to me, and there was a proposal for it to be spent on a new jail and maybe a new courthouse. I think if you go to other counties and you look at their facilities and their courthouses and their jail, it's just better than what we have in Greenwood. I don't know any better way to put it than that. And I think we are not – I know Greenwood's not the most wealthy county in the state of South Carolina, but we're certainly far from the most impoverished.
Right.
We're somewhere probably in the middle. And I think it's just a matter of let's say, and look, this is a priority. I mean, the courthouse is something the citizens see every day. And the courthouse in Greenwood is very
they're redoing
antiquated.
parts of it.
They
yes,
are.
Yes.
And so we are updating it a little bit, and I think that's good. That's admirable on the part of the county. But the jail is I think way behind where it should be. And so we need serious renovations and additions to the jail to make sure we're not dealing with overcrowding issues, to make sure we don't end up in a position where there's more lawsuits because there's safety issues. There's a lot of things that we need to address in our jail.
But across the state, if you become AG, are you going to be able to advocate to the state, or whose responsibility is it for these things? Number one, financing to be able to have enough lawyers, prosecutors to be able to move the cases. Aren't all counties overloaded with cases, or is Greenwood one of the few that has too many cases?
A lot of the circuits are. Now there's some that are more caught up than others, but coming out of COVID, every circuit in South Carolina was way behind, and it's because court, the Chief Justice in Columbia shut court down basically for 18 months.
Right.
We did a little bit virtually, but it wasn't a whole lot. So everybody was behind. The counties and the circuits that have the more manpower and the better funding have been able to catch up quicker.
Right.
I think we've been able to catch up, do pretty well here. We're still not back to where we were pre-COVID levels, but we're a lot closer. And we're not too far away from that. And so we're whittling that down a little bit at a time. Certainly if I had more people, and I've been able to add a few positions because of the state money that came in, but I haven't been able to add any attorney positions because of the county money. And so if we can increase that funding even, just a little bit at a time, that's what I've told the counties. We don't need it all at one time, but if you can give us, an additional one position this year, and then we add another one next year, I think we can get to where we need to be. Ideally in our circuit, I have 18 lawyers right now. I think if we had 25, and we would have all we needed.
Wow.
And so there's some space there for us to grow. But I think we're handling things as well as we can with the terms of court we have right now, and we are moving cases.
What about judges now? Do we have enough judges, traveling judges, temporary judges?
I know we do in our circuit. I will say this. There's some circuits that may not. We just had another judge elected in Greenwood. It was Jane Merrill, who's a longtime attorney here. She was elected to the circuit court. So we actually have 3 full-time judges here, which we had before, but we also have Judge Hocker, who's an active retired judge in Lawrence that we still get for a lot of terms of court. So we actually have 4 judges in our circuit now. So I think we have enough judges.
Okay.
Now the question is, can we get more terms of court from court administration? One of the shortages right now is not judges, it's court reporters.
Court reporters?
One of the reasons for this is the prior Chief Justice wanted everything to go digital with the court reporters, use the new technology. Well, sometimes you can do that if it's in a non-jury trial setting. You can do more digital recording. But there is no substitute for court reporters when it comes to jury trials. And so the new Chief Justice Kittredge, has done a lot to say, hey, we're going to start recruiting court reporters again. And there's court reporter schools and the tech schools. It's not that burdensome to go through court reporter school. And so we're going to try to, I think the Chief Justice told me this when we were in a meeting. He said, we're going to get more court reporters. That will help us have more terms of court. Right now, so it's not a judicial shortage. We have less terms of court than we need because they don't have enough court reporters to assign out. So I think that
if it's not one problem, it's another.
It's something else.
Yes, right? That's right. Who would have thought court reporters would be a shortage,
I
right?
never would have thought that's something we would be dealing with when I started my career. But one thing I can do, Ann, and I'll close with this on this section. As AG, I'm going to look for areas around the state that need more manpower. The two circuits right now that are really suffering with number of prosecutors are the Fourth Circuit and the Third Circuit.
Which one?
That's basically the PD.
Okay.
Chesterfield, Sherrall, Darlington, all the way down through like Sumter. And those circuits right now are really struggling to keep people. And I think part of it's that they're not areas of the state that people want to live in.
Young attorneys
I think we do have a little bit more to offer here in Greenwood than Chesterfield. And that's not a criticism of Chesterfield. Right. That's just we have a lot of, and as I've brought young lawyers here, and one of the things I've been encouraged by is I've asked them which county area of the circuit do you want to work in, and a lot of them now are telling me Greenwood, because if they come around and experience the music scene we have in Greenwood, right, and the culture and a lot of the
good place to
good place to eat, have dinner and raise kids. So I'm trying to really sell Greenwood to these young attorneys, and we're going to keep doing that. But one thing I'll do as AG is we'll look for the areas of the state that need help, and we'll send assistant attorneys generals out to those circuits to handle cases. Allen is doing a little bit of that right now. It's particularly in the Third Circuit because they're down on people so much. They're actually sending AGs out to Sumter and Lee, Clarendon, those counties for terms of court.
Wow!
And that's I'm going to continue to do that and probably even enhance that program. It's not only helpful for the circuits to move their cases and handle them. It's good for those young AGs,
right?
Because they actually get more experience. Sure. So I'm going to really focus on that.
What now, as far as what the AG does, I mean, you of course, we've got the drug problem, you've got violent crimes, human trafficking. What do you think of all the things? What is our biggest problem here in South Carolina?
I'd say probably gang violence and gun crime. That's in pockets, but I think overall, and that is something that is not just in the big cities right now. We've experienced in Greenwood. But it's not one
that anybody really talks about.
Right.
That much.
We don't hear it a lot on the campaign trails, on the federal races and the governor's race. But I'll say as an in-the-trenches prosecutor, that is the most dire need we have, is to figure out how to keep these 14, 15-year-old kids that don't have much connection at home. And look, the demographics just are pretty plain on this. Sure. Most of our gun crime and our drive-by shootings and violent gun offenses are young African-American males between the ages of 15 and 25. That is the vast majority. And so we have to figure out, what is there something that we can start doing better proactively? And the government can't wave a magic wand and fix everything. There's a lot of things that the community has to do at grassroots level and families have to do. And a lot of these young guys are coming out of homes where they don't have any positive male influence.
Correct.
And so we can't fix that on the government side. Excuse me. But what we can do is make sure that we can put mentorship programs in place, which we're trying to do right now through our family court.
And how are we dealing with juvenile? I guess when I was 3, my parents taught me to say I'm a juvenile delinquent, and and so every time I want to say that, that's what I think of. But how are we dealing with juveniles? I know they've been a big problem with the state and housing. Aren't they building a new jail, or they have built a new jail facility?
They need to, because we don't have much bed space for.
But I think that is an issue that really needs to be addressed, and there needs to be some programs. I mean, I've heard of programs like Scared Straight, and some people don't want to go that far, but what do? Oh my goodness, you are choked up.
I am. I don't know what I got in my throat here. And what we have to do is really get back to the basics in our communities, in our schools, in our churches, to teach these kids that is not the right route to go.
Well, don't we really have to take it even from the gangs that are influencing these young kids to get involved? My understanding is they'll get these young kids that'll be classified as juveniles to do the shootings and some of our drive-by shootings and stuff. And so really, if we could cut off the head of the snake, which is these adults, then maybe we could get somewhere with the young people. Right. Yes or no?
That is correct. In fact, there was a case we prosecuted a few years ago in Greenwood. It was a guy who we convicted. His street name was YG, Young Gangster, but notorious YG. He was this guy that basically was kind of the Pied Piper for the young gang members. He was in his early 20s. He was recruiting these kids to go out and shoot at people. And we had a case over at in the apartments right below the hospital where he got a group of guys. They went and shot at 2 rival gang members, middle of the day, kids everywhere, because it was right at the beginning of COVID when all the kids were home. And thank God none of the kids were hit, but they heard the gunshots and people scattered. We ended up prosecuting that case and getting a good result. Nobody was killed. The 2 guys they shot at, well, I say nobody was killed. One of the guys that was the perpetrators of it got shot by one of his cohorts. But the 2 guys they were shooting at were both gang members themselves that had been in trouble in the past, but they were both hit with bullets. Both of them survived. But ultimately in that case, that gave us an opportunity to put YG away for, I think we had a 20-year sentence for attempted murder on him. But he was exactly the guy you're talking about. And things started to quiet down for a little while after we convicted him and he went away. And, of course, after time you end up, guys kind of fill the leadership roles, and after a couple of years it starts to ramp up again. Then we have to go after those guys. What makes those cases sometimes so hard to prosecute is if they're at night and they do a drive-by shooting, for example, nobody wants to talk that saw it. There's not many cameras in a lot of those areas, although we have improved that some.
Sure.
Some of the apartment complexes on the south and east end of towns that have had a lot of shootings have put some pretty good surveillance systems in, and that's helped us.
TJ's done a good job of trying to work a neighborhood type.
He has, yes, and so and getting people to, you see something, say something, and that's what's key to building those cases. So we're doing the best we can, but I'd say on the state level we're seeing that in pockets all over South Carolina, and we really have to attack and use the state grand jury. I think even more in these gang cases. State grand jury, you can compel testimony with lower level players in some of these gangs, and sometimes, get them to talk by giving immunity.
Right.
On the ones that aren't the lead dogs, right, to try to get the head guys. So I think we need to use the state grand jury as a tool more than we are right now. Most of your state grand jury cases now are either high-level drug conspiracies and cartels or public corruption cases. A lot of that's in the grand jury, but we're not really utilizing it to attack the gang and gun cases. So, and I would, as AG, we would utilize the grand jury more in that area.
I think that could be a good thing, and it is sad to hear that is what we have going as far as gangs. But what other, because we're not going to run out of time. I mean, we could talk all evening, but right, we are going to run out of time. But what are some of the big things that you would, as you look at being AG for the great state of South Carolina, what do you look at as important for your job?
Obviously that we could talk about the criminal justice stuff all night because that's my bailiwick. I'm very tuned into the criminal justice part. Obviously, domestic violence, we have to keep hitting the fentanyl dealers and the drug cartels that are bringing deadly stuff into our communities. We need to continue to fight drunk driving. And, I can't tell you how many heartbreaking cases I've prosecuted with completely innocent victims and sometimes defendants that aren't necessarily horrible people. They just made a dumb choice. They drank too much, got behind the wheel, and ended up killing somebody. And those are tragic cases. We're going to continue to work on those criminal justice issues, and judicial reform is something that I'm going to continue to work as a policy matter on, that I have been as a solicitor. We're going to continue to try to do a better job as electing judges and having more accountability, following a federal model with that. That's what I'm going to advocate for as Attorney General. Gubernatorial appointment and confirmation by the Senate. And I think we need that federal model on the state level for electing judges. On some other policy issues, it's very important for our AGs to work together across the country, especially the Republican AGs, to fight bad policy coming out of Washington, D.C., and promote and defend the good policies that are being passed by the legislature. So, perfect example, that's the heartbeat bill. The AG is the lawyer that has to go into court and defend the heartbeat bill against constitutional challenges. We're currently in litigation. The AG and all the solicitors are being sued on the enforcement part of the heartbeat bill. So we're all involved with that. And that case is still going through litigation. I'm confident that the court's going to come out the right way on that case.
Now,
the other thing
is practice in front of the Supreme Court.
Yes.
I mean, because don't you have to be qualified to be able to?
Yes.
The Supreme Court.
Right.
Yes.
As the state AG, you are automatically able to go
okay.
prosecute in front of the. Private lawyers have to get a special designation to argue a case in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. The elected AGs are, by virtue of their jobs, able to do that.
If you ever had to do that, how would you feel about that?
What
would you think?
I'd be pretty intimidating standing in front of those 9 justices in Washington. But AGs have done it before. Allen has actually been in the Supreme Court for a couple of different cases, but one was the voter ID bill. That's another thing that we were upheld on in South Carolina. Our voter ID law was challenged and was upheld, went all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, was upheld. Allen was involved with amicus briefs on the Dobbs case, which overturned Roe v. Wade. Allen was actually in the courtroom the day they had oral arguments. He wasn't the AG arguing it. They was one of the other states, but Allen was on that team of AGs. So we have to have an AG that is fighting for the principles of and values of our people in South Carolina. We have to uphold constitutional rights when they come under assault by aggressive woke policies coming out of Washington. We need to make sure that we're fighting those in the courtroom. So I'm going to continue to do that as AG. That's one area that I don't get to participate in much as solicitor, because we're dealing with crime all day, every day.
We're down there in the trenches.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
That's right.
Yes.
So, but what I want to be is an AG that supports the guys in the trenches, which is where I've been, the solicitors, the sheriffs, the police chiefs.
Does that make a difference do you think that makes a difference having been a solicitor to be able to now go on and become the AG for the state of South Carolina?
I think it absolutely does, and I think we need a solicitor in that role because, to me, that should be the training ground for your AG. To be your chief prosecutor, you need to be one of the elected guys, and it's been a long time since we've had that. Now, Allen worked prior to his election as an assistant solicitor and an assistant AG. So he knew the courtroom and knew the prosecution world. But I do think it's important to have an elected solicitor. And I hope I'm able to bring that experience from the trenches up to the top level. But I never want to forget the roots. I don't want to be chained to a desk in Columbia. And I envision my role as AG being one where I'm out and about all over the state a lot. Mm-hmm. So I may be meeting with sheriffs and police chiefs in the Charleston area one week. I may be meeting with the solicitors down in the PD and Myrtle Beach area the next week. I may be up here in the upstate the week after that, meeting with other law enforcement leaders. That's the kind of AG I want to be. I want to really be proactive to give these guys the resources they need out here in the on the front lines.
And how does your lovely wife feel about you going for this job?
She believes that it is the right time for our family for me to do it. I don't think 5 years ago this would have been something I would have even asked her if she thought this was a good idea. I think we both realize at this point in our lives 2 of our children are now adults. One is almost an adult. She's a senior in high school. And then our youngest daughter is in the 10th grade and is 16. She's driving. She's our last one. She just started driving last month on her own as a 16-year-old. So now we have them all a lot more independent, and it's just a little bit better time for our family.
Sure.
And I want to tell you this. One thing I told all the kids is, and we talked about it, I asked them first, what do you think? And I said, this is going to have me on the road a lot more. And they just were all very encouraging. They said, Dad, we think it's the right time for this. But I'm still going to be dad, particularly with my 2 daughters that are still in high school. I'm going to do what they love doing. My daughter who's a senior doesn't do any sports anymore. My daughter Maggie love her taste in music. She and I have a very similar musical taste. We like to go to concerts together. Music we like to listen to, and also she loves the outdoors. And so I want to be able to do stuff with her, go on hikes in the mountains and stuff. And that's something that I can do as dad with her. And my daughter Annie is a volleyball player and loves has some other different interests than my. So I just have to be as a dad intentional, even in the midst of all the craziness, to say, all right, scheduled today it's an Annie day,
right?
And this next Sunday afternoon it's a Maggie Brook day, and then I'm going to go maybe spend some time with my adult son Gabe. He's older now, and he's always been an athlete, and now he's playing some golf. So I can say, all right, this afternoon Gabe and I are going to go play golf, and we're going to spend quality time together as dad and son. And so I just have to be intentional about that. And Vanessa and I have said that is the goal, is to stay intentional. I need her to remind me when I'm getting too hyper focused on campaigning. And here's the bottom line, Ann. If I can't still be a dad and get elected AG, I'm at peace with that. So if I'm do something with my family and I couldn't be at a particular event, and that's the reason I don't get elected, then that's just not the plan. And I'll continue to be the solicitor in the 8th Circuit and be perfectly happy with that. So
What else? What as far as our listeners here today? I have heard you say that you feel pretty good about Greenwood in this area, but you have the lower state, and you have a lot more out there to get out there. What would you like our folks here to know?
I just want y'all to know I'm never going to forget where I came from if I do get elected. Greenwood will always be my home. And when people ask me, what's your hometown? I was born actually in Columbia, but moved here when I was 10. And my parents have been here since I was 10 years old in the 80s. Greenwood is my home and will always be my home. And so, in fact, Vanessa and I have talked about the idea with our family being in the position it is now, we wouldn't necessarily have to move back to Columbia full time. I mean, we're close enough here. Our farm out in Lawrence County is an hour from downtown Columbia. A lot of people commute an hour every day, and there's a good chance I'll do that. We may have some times where we have to stay in Columbia. Vanessa can go with me more to Columbia now that our kids are older and are more independent. And so we're in a good season of life for that. So Greenwood will always be my home. I want everybody to know that. And but I want y'all to know that I'm going to hopefully make Greenwood proud. And I look back at just historically, I guess this is the nerd historian in me wanted to look. Did some research on it. We've never had an attorney general from Greenwood in the history of the state.
Oh, my God.
We have had some from Abbeville. There's one from Abbeville. There's one from Newberry. So there's been some from the 8th Circuit. There was, I think, one early on, but even those have been, century, like at least a century or more ago. And we have never had a governor. So we've never had a statewide elected official either at least in the governor and AG race. That's where I'd limited my research from Greenwood. So hopefully we can
support from the people in Greenwood.
So we want this to be a Greenwood effort, and I need all the people out there that want to contribute to our campaign. And that's a big thing right now is fundraising. I've been told that this race will probably be $1 million plus to be competitive. And so we got a lot of fundraising to do. The max contribution is $3,500, but anything up to that legally I can take. And so
where do people go if they want more information about you?
You can go to www.votestumbo.com. It's real easy. Votestumbo.com. We kept it simple. So if you go to Vote Stumbo, STUMBO, votestumbo.com, it has a donation portal on it where you can contribute online. It has my address, the P.O. box we have for the campaign where you can send a check. And it has also kind of a general sketch of my platform. We're going to probably enhance that as time goes along with more campaign materials. But if you go to our website and our Facebook page, just go search David Stumbo on Facebook. I have a personal page that is David M. Stumbo, but also my campaign page is David Stumbo. So search that on Facebook, follow our Facebook page. We're going to have a lot of updates on events that we're going to have through the Facebook page as well. So look forward to all the great support we're going to get in the Greenwood area.
Well, Greenwood, and you need people that have, I guess, relationships down on the coast and everything.
Correct.
To be able to say, hey, I want you to take a look at my guy, David
That's right.
Stumbo.
We're building that support network now as far as donors and grassroots support. I have some big supporters already down in the Myrtle Beach area. I have a few down in Charleston and Somerville that are all in, that we're already scheduling fundraising events and grassroots events. And probably a lot of the grassroots activist stuff will be in the fall. But I'm speaking to, I just looking at my calendar over the next 2 months, I'm going to be speaking to a lot of Republican parties, Republican women's groups, Rotary clubs, all over the place. In fact, I'm speaking to the Newberry GOP tomorrow night, so that'll be
eating barbecue.
In Newberry. Right? Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch that. I can't afford to eat too much barbecue. So,
but I think this has to be an exciting time for you and your family. I think that it takes a lot to stand up and do that, and I salute you for going ahead and standing up and wanting to put your name in the hat to do this. I guess the good thing is, if for some reason you don't make it, you'll still be the AG right here in Greenwood.
I will.
Is that right?
That's correct. I just was reelected this past year. So I would, if I don't win the AG's race, I would be the solicitor for another 2 years. The last 2 years of my term. So this is midterm, and then I don't know what the things will bring, but I'd love to probably run for re-election as solicitor. This is a job I could do the rest of my career in Greenwood and be perfectly content, and it really is. I can sincerely say that. I just see the AG's office as one that is too important to be left to people that either are not qualified for the job, not experienced enough to do the job, or don't share the same values that we do as Republicans and someone who's been a conservative their whole life. So I think I'm uniquely situated. I'm the only candidate in the race that's worked for the length of time as a prosecutor that I did in the AG's office. Mm-hmm. And so I believe I'm uniquely positioned to be the next Attorney General. So we'll see what happens.
That's right. That's right. Well, I sure appreciate you coming here, and I think I could say I'm the first radio interview that you've had here. That's right.
I told you,
That's right.
a couple months ago, you said, well, I want to be the first radio interview, and I said, you got it, Ann. So I announced last night over in Lawrence at the museum.
And you're here today.
And we're here today. We had about a couple hundred people there last night, Ann. It was a real festive atmosphere, and had a great time with everybody. Also, if you go to my website, I have a campaign video commercial that's already up, and I'm real impressed with what our campaign came up with. So please go to the website.
Yeah, it shows you being a prosecutor, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. And in fact, Ann, if you want to share it on the WCRS page, you go to it's David Stumbo, and you can share that post with the video in it. So
I will do it.
For your listeners. So.
All right. Well, David Stumbo, I wish you all the luck. I hope you'll come back and see us again and keep me updated on what's happening, because we want to share it right here on WCRS Radio.
Absolutely, and thank you for the opportunity. I'm sorry I've got that little bug in my throat there for a minute. I fortunately got some water down to get it out.
That's right. Yep. All right. Well, listen, I'm WCRS Radio, the voice of Greenwood. I am now going to head over to Lander University's Jackson Lecture Series, where they are debating debating the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution with these two great actors who do historical. One of them is portraying Thomas Jefferson. The other one is portraying John Adams. And it's going on right now at Lambert.
Excellent. Well, I need to get out of your hair, Ann, so you can get over there to that. I'm not going to be able to make it to that event tonight, but that is wonderful. I'm glad Lander's doing that. And
Absolutely.
Focusing on the historical aspects.
Absolutely. So that's going to do it for us. I'll be back in the morning. This is WCRS right here in Greenwood. Thanks so much, David. You have been telling us all about, and it's been great. This is WCRS Radio. Cue the music, and we're out of here. Bye-bye, everybody.